Okay, so I'm sorry, but you guys are going to have to bear with me here because we're doing this on the fly here.
Okay.
Nothing new there.
There's comments?
That's way too efficient.
Oh, my gosh.
Simon thinks this is a professional show. Simon, this is not.
Okay, so...
Just one notch above Biddle.
All right.
One notch above.
That's not saying much.
That's the most accurate you could possibly have.
Welcome to another episode of Destination Linux Podcast.
Welcome to episode 61. I'm Rocco.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Zeb.
And I'm Michael.
And this is Destination Linux. So this week we have a special guest. Simon Quigley is here, and he is currently the Lubuntu release manager. He is master of the universe, Simon. We're going to have to get into that. Ubuntu membership board member, Ubuntu member. I could go down the list on and on. So you help out in the community tremendously. So thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so we are here. We have you here to talk about Lubuntu Next. But before we get into that, people have maybe been familiar with seeing you on Destination Linux before, but you were on for short segments. So let's talk about where you got started in Linux, because you're a young guy and you're already contributing to all kinds of places in Linux.
So where I really got started with Linux is, funny enough, I remember first seeing Linux as, and this will seem kind of ironic, on like download pages of software that I was already using. I was looked at that and I was like, I wonder what this Linux thing is. And I think it was like 2015, the winter break of 2015. I really, I had a Windows 7 install on an older computer, and I ended up doing something to it. I'm not remembering specifically what it was, where I wouldn't boot from there. So I'm like, okay, I should try this Linux thing. It might be a good idea just to, experiment with it. So I was searching around for what Linux is and the distributions and stuff like that. So I found, the two major things I was going to go with was Fedora or, just regular Ubuntu. I figured out that, ironically enough, I said, I can pronounce Fedora, so I'm going to go with Fedora for now. And so I ended up, I tried to install Fedora, and the installer froze. And I tried again, and the installer froze. So I'm like, okay, I'll give this Ubuntu thing a try. So I tried Ubuntu, and I ended up just with Unity on this old computer. So while it ran horribly because it's Unity on a computer that had maybe 3 gigs of RAM, little tiny 1-core processor, it was, that's really where I started experimenting with Linux and got a feel for, everything that Linux offers. And then from there, I realized that, after trying Lubuntu with LXQt on my system, it ran a lot better. So I went and switched there and joined the community from there.
So you're telling me that you started Linux in 2015?
Correct. Yep. I was 12 years old.
Wow.
And you already have a Master of the Universe title? I feel like I failed in life at this point, Like at this point, I think I've been in Linux close to 2 years, and I don't think I'm anywhere near getting a Master of the Universe title. So I'm going to need some tips after this to get that, because I need one.
So tell us, what exactly is Master of the Universe title?
So if you know, Ubuntu is split up into 4 different sections. It's split up into main, universe, restricted, and multiverse. So that's the whole archive, how it's split up. Main is the the canonical supported software. So the software that goes in there has canonical employee working on it, or it's a dependency of sorts of a different piece of software that canonical ships, either as part of the Ubuntu desktop or the Ubuntu server or something along those lines. Universe is the community supported packages. So you have things in there, anything that comes from Debian just free flows into the Universe repository. So that's basically, if you think all of the LXDE, all of the LXQt, XFCE, Mate, Budgie, you name it, that they're all in there. If it's just community supported. And then you have two others which are restricted, which is, like Intel drivers and stuff like that. And then Multiverse, which is, shady-ish, software. Master of the Universe is basically upload access to the Ubuntu archive, but only the Universe and the Multiverse sections. So I currently have upload access to all of the software in Ubuntu that is not directly supported by Canonical.
And are any of those items in Multiverse and Universe ones that you've physically changed yourself and submit bug codes to, or?
Yeah, so it really depends on what you mean by that, because there's different. I've done a wide variety of things. I've done anywhere between just simple bug fixes to software. I've done, updates to stable releases, including like security updates to things like VLC. Otherwise, I've done new upstream releases. I've worked with upstream Debian to do stuff. It's just the Master of the Universe is sort of a wide umbrella of sorts, because you work with any community supported package and you're collectively responsible within that team for maintaining these packages. So really if you're Master of the Universe, you can touch all sorts of different packages, get all sorts of different bug fixes in, depending on if there's bugs on them, etc. Whereas if you have things like per package uploader or something like that, that's only a specific set of packages. So like I said, it really does depend on, what there is to do. Some things are obviously more high priority for me. Like, for example, I prioritize on more Lubuntu and Kubuntu packages and stuff like that. While sometimes if somebody happens to link me to a bug report where some other package that isn't pulled in by any flavor is affected by this bug, I have the ability to help fix that. I also sponsor different things for different people. So if somebody prepared an upload to go into the Ubuntu archive that has like a bug fix or something like that, I'm part of the team that can review that. And if it looks good, I can upload that to the archive.
That is awesome. That's a lot of responsibility to have to do that. Not to outdo you or anything, but when I see an error message, I click the send report, and I've done stuff like that.
Don't go overboard, Ryan. That's
don't go so far as to submit an actual bug. Just hit the send error report.
Okay. You've probably seen the bug I submitted, so there.
I probably have, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So otherwise, it's just basically just general.
Very cool.
Yes.
All right, so let's get into Lubuntu Next. So for the people that don't know, what is Lubuntu Next?
So Lubuntu, just to give us a little bit of a backstory, Lubuntu is based on LXDE, and from its origin in 2009-ish, it has been based solely on LXDE. Now, upstream in LXDE, it's based on GTK2, and there are no plans, except for some different little tiny packages like I think LX Terminal switched to GTK3. They do not plan to switch from GTK2 to GTK3. So it's just a primarily GTK-based desktop environment that we've shipped with for years. So the LXQt project came along when the people from the Racer Qt project and the people from just that regular LXD project came together and wanted to make a Qt version of LXDE that used modern, I don't know how you'd say it, modern frameworks to develop it rather than GTK2. So while LXDE still gets some maintenance from time to time, some little bug fix updates, primarily the focus is on LXQt upstream. So upstream, provides LXQt. Now the goal has been since, I think we've even said it since 1504, that we are going to switch to using LXQt by default, because it's where the development is, plus it's based on Qt, which in my opinion, and in the opinion of others, is a really, really good framework to base your stuff on. And, because it's pretty stable, it's easy to work with, that sort of thing. And I guess the difference between the two is that LXQt is a little bit of a newer project. It doesn't have as much, I wouldn't even say it doesn't have as much refinement. It's just a newer project that there might be some little things that aren't quite worked out yet. Where LXDE is the tried and true, GTK2 desktop environment. So
didn't a lot of developers from LXDE switch over to LXQt, like PC Man? Didn't he switch over?
Yep. With that, there's things like PC Man, File Manager. Like there's a Qt version of that, and so there's a lot of different developers switched over, but there's still like, I don't even know if it's 1 or 2 different developers that still work on LXDE very minimally, I would say, doing bug fixes. Like there's different people that I think one of the Debian maintainers for LXDE also does some upstream work there still. But it's like I said, it's mainly just except for what I've seen LX Terminal do, that's been ported to GTK3, but mostly it's just keeping bug fixes, keeping it bug free.
Yeah. So it sounds like a maintenance mode type thing.
Correct. Yeah. And that's, to be honest with you, it's sort of what mode Lubuntu has been in for the past couple of years, because we've been based on LXDE and we've seen little to no bugs with LXDE itself, with with the exceptions being some different CVs and stuff like that have been discovered. But mainly we've just been in maintenance mode while we're preparing to switch to LXQt, and it almost feels like something we've said over and over and over again that we just never have done. But the goal is to eventually completely switch to LXQt once LXQt has gotten to the point where not only do our default settings work with it, which we're having some issues with that, but it also has a good suite of applications and stuff like that. So it's a good coherent desktop that works for the end user. So that's the eventual goal. I think by the time 2004 comes out, we'll be switched to that by default.
Right.
All right. Cool. So Simon, you sort of explained why you've moved to LXQt, but LXDE has been so well received as being this reliable, lightweight, rock solid distribution. Are you worried that you might lose some user base when you go to LXQt, or because you're not going to go until 2004-ish, are you going to make sure that LXQt is as rock solid?
So that's I think it's sort of a mixed bag, because there's obviously still going to be some people that I was just talking to a guy on IRC the other day. He has a really small machine, or like a laptop with 256 megabytes of RAM, something like that, and he says that LXQt is extremely bloated. There's still going to be the people that have the machines that are extremely low powered. But I think with these machines, you really can't use things like Firefox or any big browser on there. So I think we're reaching the point where once we move to LXQt, the focus may not necessarily, while it still is a very, very lightweight environment, it's not as, like, for lack of a better word, it's just not as lightweight. So it's I do think that we are going to lose some people. It might just be a handful of people. It might be a lot of people. But I definitely think that GTK2 is since it's a maintenance mode upstream, it's eventually going to bit rot, and we're eventually going to get to the point where GTK2 software is going to be, not working anymore. So I would much rather than stick with a toolkit that is going to be deprecated, and rather than stick with that, moving to Qt is much better option than doing that. So while some users obviously are going to be saddened or something along those lines by a transition, it's ultimately going to be the best thing for maintenance and just to keep up almost. It's
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that Qt, the modularity of Qt and the flexibility of it provides so much potential that LXQt is going to be a much better transition. Like, it's going to be a better, fundamentally, the DE for the distro. But that brings up the question is now, is there going to be an option where you have both LXQt and LXD at the same time? And if so, when you say 2004, are you saying that that's the first? You think that might be the first version that LXQt would be like launched, or that's like the first LTS?
So we've originally, just a little bit of history. I became release manager in February of last year. So my major goal as release manager, one of my major goals is to progress the move to LXQt and make it go a little bit quicker than it has been going, because from that point, we've been saying we wanted to switch for 2 years then. So the goal originally, when I became release manager, was to release it alongside if I can talk, 17.10. And this time it was the goal to release something alongside 18.04. But in discussions with not only like the release team and the technical board, alongside of, having some issues with the default settings still, we've been, I think the decision from here is going to be to continue having it being like a daily sort of image where it's spun up as a daily image but isn't quite released yet. And, once we get to that point where it is stable and usable, depending on how things look from there, it depends on if GTK2 is completely deprecated at that point, or if the software doesn't work anymore, or if it's in a bad state, then obviously we will accelerate the progression of moving from GTK to LXQt to LXQt. But the plan is to ship it as a separate edition until it is stable enough, until we get some statistics to say that this is the right choice to make. And then from there, like I said, it's likely before 2004 we are going to make the move. That means the LXD packages will no longer be maintained by the Lubuntu team, and we will focus on LXQt. Now, I say 2004 because there's a good 2-year gap between 1804 and 2004.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think using LXD or LXQt, that it's a stable enough desktop environment that you can use by default. Now, we're just tweaking things and doing stuff like that, but obviously we're going to need like an upgrade path, of course.
Yeah.
So maybe like conversion of settings, that sort of thing. And we just need to get all that figured out before we can ship it as an LTS. So that's one thing that I'm really keeping in mind before we switch to LXQt is how is it going to work for the LTS? Because regular releases, people don't use those as much as the LTS. So
let me ask a follow-up question to something you said earlier about, talking to an individual who had 256 megabytes of RAM. I mean, there comes a point probably where you guys, I think the niche is you guys are a lightweight distro, right? I mean, that's the big push. I'm sure it's not the only push, but that's one of the big pushes, your lightweight distro. Is there parameters within there that you say this is still considered a light? I mean, XFCE says it's a lightweight distro. Sparky Linux says, it's a lightweight distro or desktop environments, in between. I mean, is there a standard that you guys set to say we can't go over this much for the ISO? We can't go over using this much memory. I mean, is that really the niche there that you're trying to focus on, or are you guys trying to go a different direction?
Well, I think I think around when 1604 was released, we did have, a focus on keeping not only the ISO to make it to fit on a CD, but the focus was also to just make sure that things were extremely, extremely lightweight. I think recently that's sort of, fallen by the wayside because, like I said, applications are evolving and stuff like that. So, so to answer the first part of your question, we don't have any, not anymore at least, any set statistics, that we don't go over these, or we're no longer a lightweight distro, or we don't go over these, or we don't ship, that sort of thing. But I definitely think that, as time goes on, the need for lightweight distro, it's sort of like a distro that can run on really, really, really old hardware. You have distributions nowadays that can run on hardware that is 10 years old. So 10 years old at this point, it's not the 256 megabytes of RAM machines, because that's our sort of what we've always said. We said if it's the rule of thumb is that it shouldn't be older than 10 years old. So I guess to sort of answer your question, it's not something that we're probably going to keep with for, once we switch to LXQt, but for the time being, LXDE has that. And even like I said before, like LXQt still is a lightweight desktop environment. It still is light and modular, and I don't know if compact's the right word, but it's still something that we could say that is lightweight, but our focus no longer will be in the future focusing on old computers. So
going for light instead of ultralight.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you have heard some feedback already, but is there a general sense of feedback from the community on the direction of this?
I've heard mixed things. I've heard some people say, like that one person I talked to in IRC the other day, he said, do not switch to LXQt because it's super bloated. Obviously that machine might not survive, much longer. If it does, he can continue using LXDE, I guess. But I think that a lot of people are saying you should switch, you should move. Some people are saying that have the ultra light machines. It's, as you said before, Michael, then I think that they're not for it. So
yeah, they're the edge cases.
Right. I guess, well, I wouldn't even consider it an edge case for Lubuntu right now, because while it's becoming more of an edge case, the focus is still to provide software for these really, really old machines. Right. But as these machines become obsolete to the point where the oldest machines you can have are, based on, or they have 2 gigs of RAM maybe, then, it's to the point where while you need a light desktop environment that's just snappy and quick and stuff like that, that's not really, it's not really sustainable, I don't think.
And by the time 2004 comes out, you're going to look at machines that are 256 megabytes or smaller, or even around that area, are minimum 20 years old.
Right. Exactly.
So when you look at a lightweight distro, one of the things that frustrated me when I first got into Linux was the fact that everybody kept saying, hey, it's really good for old hardware. And so one of the first things I did is, well, what if you put it on the latest? And it was awesome. And so I wonder with the lightweight distro, a lot of times people talk about, I see this a lot with lightweight distros, like, well, if it's a lightweight distro, put it on an old computer. But that's not just what you guys are going after in a lightweight distro. I mean, it could be just as advantageous to put it on a powerful computer and have more resources for other things that you're doing, right? I mean, is that something you're targeting as well versus kind of looking back at 10 years ago computers?
Right. I do certainly think that while we do have, while we can focus on, we can and have focused on older computers that, that just are 10, 15 years old, then I think that there's also the other side of that, is that you can run it on modern hardware and it's still lightweight and snappy, and you can, use it and it just gets out of your way. So I think you're sort of correct in that it's, while we still have that, older hardware target, we also have a target of just generally making it usable and lightweight. I think that's going to come with the switch to LXQt. It's going to be more of making it a lightweight desktop for the average system, rather than making it a lightweight desktop for the older the really, really old computers. Because as Michael said, in 2020, 10 years ago, computers, they're 2010 computers, and computers made in 2010, they have gig or 2 of RAM at least, I think, and more better processors and stuff like that. But I think that is going to be the focus going forward, and we're certainly moving towards that, if anything. So
it's really fun to run a lightweight distro on powerful computers, because things are just so snappy. That's why I was wondering if you guys were looking at that as well. And just one critique that I have is, for me, when a lot of lightweight distros, they remove things that I consider, one thing specifically that I consider to be just a core desktop environment thing. Like, removing it is to me the same as, why even have a wallpaper or ability to switch a wallpaper? Like, this is core functionality, and that is menu searching for applications. Like, when you open a menu, there should be a search there. You should be able to find your applications. A lot of these desktop environments that are light don't have that. Is there any chance, besides adding third-party applications, that there's going to be a default in the newest Lubuntu with menu searchability?
So, as I said before, with LXQt, we're in maintenance mode. So you shouldn't really expect anything new in the LTS of Lubuntu, except for just generally bug fixes if there's any bugs to fix. But with Lubuntu Next, I certainly think that's something to consider. Just having, I've been playing with a wide variety of different features we can implement in LXQt. Just, I've written a little prototype code for this and that. But I definitely think that, so you're saying the default applications should automatically be searchable.
Well, in the menu, when you click on a menu, there should be a search option there. And what happens is there's two things. I think in LXDE, in some instances, you could search, but when you went back to, you clicked your menu button, the search was still there and it didn't go back default to show your applications. And then in other ones, I've opened up the menu and there's no search functionality there at all. And to me, having a search for applications, that's just like desktop environment 101. I mean, and I could be wrong. I know a lot of people may not agree with me, but to me, that's a core function of a desktop to be able to search for something. Like
I agree with that. Actually, that's I remember when I first switched from LXDE to LXQt, and I tried to switch back to LXDE. That's the one thing that I could not, that just kept me on using like LXQt panel, is that once you get used to using the search functionality, there's no going back to, just going and finding things in the menu. So I agree with you on that. That's something that's
LXDE was created during a time where that wasn't normal.
Right. And that's sort of what it is.
Is there a time when that wasn't normal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there was a time.
Before I was born. Are we talking like 78, like 60s?
I'm going to say I don't know exactly when it was made, but it's roughly about 2003-ish.
Yeah. Sort of. Some along those lines.
You'd be a hero of mine if that ends up there, because I love running lightweight distros on my computer. But that to me is one of those things that personally, if it's not there, and yes, I can add third parties, but it's like, I don't know. I view it as like a slap in the face. Like, you're too lazy to put a search menu in there. I'm not using your distro. That's how I feel about it.
But the thing about LXQt is it does have search functionality, but I remember seeing an upstream bug report where somebody was like, when you click away from that menu, it should automatically just clear it. Upstream close that as won't fix. So upstream close that as won't fix. If that's something that I think that is beneficial, I have upload access to these packages, and I can patch this in. That's definitely something that I think is worth looking into. If it's awesome. If that's something that has annoyed me a little bit as well. Like I've sort of gotten used to it. To be honest with you, you just click the thing and you can just click the little X button and it's gone. But I definitely think that should be an option that either should be on by default, or somebody should be able to just turn it on and just automatically just clears those results.
Yeah. Well, there's a compromise to do both. Technically, if you have there's some applications that allow you to show like grayed out text, and if you don't type anything there, it just uses that text. You could hit an arrow, and that text is now reactivated. And if you just start typing normally, it would be like a new search.
All right, Michael, Simon, after the podcast, you guys get together, fix this. I love it. Do it. We're bringing people together, Rocco.
Yeah, that's what we're all about. Community.
Exactly.
So just one final question before we move off the lightweightness of the things. Keeping LXDE so light and being aware that you want to try and keep LXQt light, does that in any way stop you from innovating by sort of saying, I'd love to put this feature in, but it's going to make it too heavy?
With LXDE, I certainly think that's the goal, but with LXQt, I don't think that's something that I'm personally necessarily focusing on. I don't think there's going to be a time in implementing stuff for LXQt unless it does something insane with the code where it just makes it like a monster to implement. I don't think there's a time that, we should say, this feature would be nice, but we just want to keep it lightweight. No, I think I personally don't like that. I think that's something that if there's a feature, we should keep it functioning, quick and snappy, but we shouldn't, inhibit good features by that. So
I think it also means, in a way, you could also say that focusing on light first gives them like not necessarily a constraint, but just if you have like a narrow window of some kind of idea, just lightness in general, and then you have like the stuff you want to work on is more, you can be more creative when you have like some guidelines. So if there's like, even if they do go with like the lighter stuff, like he said, is like, even if it's not like a massive monster, they'll still do it, but it provides like a guideline, keep this, keep it lightweight as possible, which also you can make them more creative by that. So like, for example, if you're like a kid and they say, write an essay for class, and like, what topic, anything you want, and then they don't do it.
Right. All right. So Simon, in our Telegram group, we have a bunch of distro hoppers. So I'm sure they're going to want to get their hands on it. So where can we find out more information about Lubuntu Next?
Mainly, I think just the website might have some good information on it, at lubuntu.me. And, I think that, well, right now the daily builds are broken because there are some issues with some default settings that aren't being applied correctly. And it asks you to select your default window manager on boot. We are trying to fix that, but I definitely think that if you want to give this a try, stay in contact with me. If you're really determined about getting it working, then I'll obviously help you. But either lubuntu.me, or you can just grab the dailies directly from cdimage.ubuntu.com.
So if we go to lubuntu.me and we look at the page, it says 17.10. That will be based on LXDE, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
that's the one I downloaded, Rocco, thinking I was on 18. You could go ahead and bring it up. I knew you wanted to bring it up.
I was going to bring it up. For those who want to try out the Lubuntu Next, you have to get the 1804 images. And as Simon says, right now there is a problem with the images. So I don't know. How can we get a hold of you? Like you said, get a hold of you. You want people to get a hold of you through Telegram, or how do you want people to get a hold of you, Simon?
I'm on many different things. So there's Telegram, IRC. You can just pick one, and if I'm on it, then I'm fine getting a message over it. Awesome.
So we will direct all the hate mail to you, and and So anybody wants to check it out, Lubuntu.me. You can go distro hop as free as you like. Yep. All right, Simon, do you want to stick around with us while we cover the news?
Sure.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. So what do we have in the news?
Well, I wanted to talk about a couple of new distros that have been brought out just recently. And one of them that's claiming to be the first distribution based on Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. Now, what I found particularly interesting about this is, how can it be based on 18.04 LTS when it's not even out yet? So surely it should be saying it's based on Ubuntu 18.04 Alpha 1, Beta 2, Release Candidate 1. But yeah, you go in there and it has a nice look and feel about it. But it's actually called ExtonOS. And when I went in to investigate this, I thought, hang on a minute, I know this guy's work. I've seen him before. And in fact, he's got an exact same channel, but he calls it Xtix.
Yes.
And he's a developer from Sweden, and he's ridiculously prolific. I mean, I've looked at his download site, and in 18 months, he has produced 18 different distros based upon various Debians and Ubuntu and all the rest of it. Every single mix of desktop environment you can think of. And they all look wonderful, but I couldn't ever get one of them to work properly. So it begs the question, why are you've got this claim, you're the first 18.04, but does it work? So I installed it. And no, it doesn't. It breaks on the grub. So
this is not good news.
You then get it up and running, and you go back to your old OS, you update grub, and you reboot, and you pick that, and you get a terminal window. And you have to work your way through the gobbledygook to realize, well, actually, just press Control D and it will start. And when it starts, I must admit, every one I've tried are really, really well put together. They're beautiful, they're quick, they're slick, but they're just too hard work to get working. And I don't know whether he's worked for Mint in the past, but he does something really weird with PPAs where you can't add them because they don't work. So what's the point of having a Ubuntu-based distro if I can't put OBS Studio on there and get the stuff that I want working? So I wondered if any of you guys had and worked with Exton or Xtix.
Well, I had never heard of this before, Exton, but I mean, obviously, most people have heard of Xtix. I didn't realize they were the same. So, like you, I went to the website and found they were the same. And you're right. I mean, he has so many. I guess it's Artie Exton is the guy's name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the name of the OS is based off of. But he has so many different types of desktop environments and bases and everything from Slack on down to Android, Raspberry Pi. I mean, like everything. I mean, there's just everything there. I don't know how one guy is able to do all that. They look like they're going to be great, but you said, Zeb, you couldn't get it to install. I didn't have time before the show to actually try it out, but I don't know. Maybe it's due to, him testing things on his hardware, and, everybody's hardware is different. Everything reacts differently on your hardware compared to somebody else's. So maybe that's the issues with the way it is getting installed.
He has a quote here. We tell people we use Linux because it's secure, because it's free or customizable, but deep underneath, the real reason we use Linux is because it's fun. So maybe he just has fun creating distros. Maybe that's what he thinks is fun. So, I mean, more power to him, but yeah, you got to be able to use it.
I mean, it's difficult for, 18 people to make one distro. One person making 18, a little bit more.
Well, maybe there's more to the story here. I mean, clearly he's talented enough to be able to put this stuff together, but I would love to see folks like this collaborate more with distros that are already out there potentially, because you have to have talent to do what this person's doing on some level, and that could be used towards other things potentially. Or maybe if he sticks with one, or a couple, maybe he could, create something really unique. But it seems like maybe, I don't know how big the development team really is behind it, but it seems like maybe a lot of split priorities potentially.
Well, it certainly brings that distro hopping to a whole new level. He's distro developing, or
he's dev hops.
Dev hopping.
He's a dev hopper.
We call it a new term.
We'll have to come up with something, because that was just too awkward to try, and distro hopping just ripples off the tongue, but dev hopping,
just dev hops. That's it, dev hops.
Mm-hmm.
Dev hops, yeah. Which is a shame, because as I say, when you get the actual application up, it's as beautiful as Deepin and as beautiful as Elementary.
Wow.
Everything just clicks and matches.
It's funny you say that, Zeb, because I downloaded the Deepin version. I didn't get to try it out, but I did.
So, if you're a part of the Distro Hoppers Anonymous Club, then this next distro we're going to talk about you may want to perk your ears up here. It's called Seduction, and they have 2018.2.0 released. And Seduction is a distro brought to us from some developers in Germany. And it's got a lot of great ratings so far. It's got 16 ratings on DistroWatch, all at 9.0. So that's a pretty high rating. I mean, they need some more reviews, but 16 9.0, that's saying something there. This is another one, and it comes with a plethora of desktop environments here: KDE, LXQt, GNOME, Cinnamon, Mate, XFC, LXD, Xorg, and NoX. And so this is kind of feeds into what we were talking about with the last distro, that sometimes when I see these distros that have so many flavors of them, unless there's something as big as Ubuntu and have massive communities behind each one, it seems like you tend to lose some work here and there on some of these distros, meaning they're not putting enough attention into the different desktop environments to make sure all of them are functioning properly. Has anybody tried this one?
I've tried Seduction in the past. When they first created, there was they were a fork of another distro. I tried that one first, and it had some pretty glaring problems. But when Seduction came around, it essentially just created a nice polish for something that really has no business being polished, and that's Debian unstable. So the term itself, it's unstable, yet it's polished. It's confusing, but interesting.
Well, they even mentioned themselves, kind of extending on that the developer states the GNOME, Mate, and LXDE flavors are unmaintained at the moment and may get dropped if there's no additional support. So if you're somebody who develops or wants to help support them, they're there, but it looks like maybe having all these desktop environments is creating kind of that issue here.
Hey, maybe we could get Xtix and Seduction together.
That's right.
We're bringing people together here, Ryan. You know what I mean?
I love it. I love it.
That's what we do.
Well, I actually did install this, Rocco, and played with it in a virtual machine. And I want to tell you, Simon, this is how much I respect you. I chose the LXQt version in your honor.
Actually, funny enough, the developer for Seduction, the LXQt version, is the same developer for Debian, for that the LXQt Debian spin. So that's, there's sort of a connection there because we pull those packages from Debian unless we make modifications to them ourselves. So you're sort of running half of the packages you would sort of get on Lubuntu Next.
Nice. It looked beautiful. They did a fantastic job, I thought, with the panel bars and making it look approachable. They had a nice manual on the desktop that you could get into and kind of link through a wide range of setup and configurations. But it smacked me in the face. It literally it got up and just right across my head when I clicked on the menu and there was no
search.
Wait, no, they did have a search, but it left the search term in there when you went back. So it only half smacked me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Upstream,
it was like a backhand.
So, speaking of interesting distros, I'm not sure if I'm pretty sure it's KaOS, but it might not be. It might be KaOS, but I want it to be KaOS. So KaOS is 2018.3 was released recently, and KaOS is a rolling distro that has an interesting reputation because people think it's an Arch based distro, but it's not. They have they say it's built from scratch, but that's kind of not true because it's not like Linux from scratch, and they also use tools from various different distros. So it's like a combination of different tools from various distros. Like there's a lot of OpenSUSE tools, and the confusion for KaOS is the fact that it has Pacman as the package manager, so people just assume automatically that it's Arch. But
by people, he means me, by the way.
I did not specify anyone at all.
I thought it was Arch.
Yeah, a lot of people do think it is, and the reason why I know it's not is because I dug on their website, and there's a page specifically that says we're independent, not based on Arch.
Right.
That's a good clue.
Yeah, that's a good clue.
Well, I think they can get away with the built from scratch concept because they taking everything. They're taking pieces from everywhere, so there's nothing like it out there. It's not like they're taking and copying something. So
yeah, they're not forking anything, or they are technically building everything from scratch. So it's because they're doing like compiling everything themselves in their own repo. So I guess that's fair. But one of the things that their recent releases was that they have now added Falcon as their default browser instead of Cupzilla.
Yeah.
I'm so glad they're Falcon now. That's so easy.
I can't believe they don't use Squeaky Weasel.
They don't use Squeaky Weasel, right?
Yeah.
So have you guys ever tried KaOS?
I've tried it, but I found it to be just incredibly limiting in the type of software that you could install. Because it's their own repos, if they haven't thought that you need this particular application, it's then very difficult to get that application to install and work with it. And I think they literally say, if it's not Qt, you're not getting in. And I don't know if other people have had that same sort of experience. Again, looks pretty, runs really well, but it's just too limiting.
Well, I think if you're a KDE user, I think that you will enjoy this distro because that's basically all you can get from it. And you're right, it is limiting, and you have to be aware of that going in. But I don't think it's much different than a Solus situation right now, where even though it is limited in software in certain situations, that going in. So if you are a KDE user and you want to use all KDE apps or Qt apps, Qt, if you want to use all those kind of apps, then it's perfect for you because I think it's a beautiful distribution. And it looks like they take really good care in trying to make it be the ultimate in Qt.
Yeah, and the ultimate Plasma solution as well, as far as if you want to experience Plasma as much polish as possible. They put a lot of effort into it, and their website has a point where someone's they said we haven't decided on certain things, like in their about section is essentially they were like, we're not certain things we haven't really decided. Maybe we'll use this, we'll continue with something else, but we will always be KDE Plasma.
Yep.
perfect.
Let me tell you something amazing about this, Rocco.
What's amazing, Ryan?
When you go into this, there's no artifacting on the icons. No text that has black boxes sitting over it. It literally, they none of those issues that you see.
I don't understand that, because this integrates 5.12.2, and yet I'm on KDE Neon and I am on 5.12.2, and I have the artifacts.
Exactly. And I didn't see this in at any point when I was running it. None of it. Not when I was installing it. Not after it was installed. Not while using it. Whereas in KDE Neon, you'll see that generally pretty quickly within, utilizing it. And it's a minor annoyance, but it's interesting that somehow they're not experiencing it. So I think that's some type of feather in their hat.
Yep.
And they've. Go ahead, Zeb.
I was going to say a question for Rocco then. If it's that good and they've got rid of some of all these artifacts, what is it about it that would stop you from using it as your daily driver?
Because of the limitation of the software. And that would be the only reason, because I did a video on it a long time ago, and it's a beautiful distribution. It really is. It's just that I don't want to be limited to, say, Falcon browser. You know what I mean? I want to be able to choose what I want to be able to choose. So
okay, you can have Conqueror.
Well, I think what's interesting is they're hovering around 1,500 packages, and they're basically going through these packages on their own and building them for their platform. You can install AUR apparently with it, but you said it's not based on Arch, so that confuses me a little bit, because there's some articles on YouTube and things that I was looking at showing how you can install AUR, but basically they say that you could break things if you enable the AUR because they don't support anything 32-bit. So I don't know all the details behind it. I didn't get that far in it, but there were at least some obstacles there. But I thought it was interesting because of the fact that you could potentially go in there and find some other things that you can install, but it may be broken. But 1,500 packages seems like a lot. But I noticed that none of the third-party stuff was available, and that to me would have been the deal breaker why I wouldn't run it right now, because I think it's certainly beautiful enough. For instance, like your Telegrams and Zooms and things like that are third-party. They're obviously not in their packages there for you to install.
Yeah, in theory, the AUR, because the Arch the Arch package are no longer using 32-bit, so it's possible that the AUR is not going to be needing much of the 32. So that might be like a problem that's no longer as big of a problem, unless you want to use Steam, and then it's a big problem.
Yeah, that would be a big killer. No more Rocket League, Rocco. Could you imagine a world without Rocket League?
That's when I go to another distro. Sorry. That's where I draw the line. Without Rocket League.
So one of my favorite distributions in the world, Xubuntu 18.04, is in testing. The 18.04 version is in testing. It's one of my favorite flavors. The daily builds are out there. And even if getting into a testing mode is not your thing, you can go out there and join their wallpaper submission contest out there, Rocco. So you know how you love theming. You can make them the perfect wallpaper and submit it.
Well, here's the thing. I am not an artist, okay? So I don't have artistic talent to create something out of nothing. The only thing that I can do is say that doesn't look right. It should be over here.
You're a critic, but not a developer.
Yeah, I can't create nothing out of nothing. It's just the way it is.
I know what's good, but not how to make it good.
Exactly. That's exactly how I am. So I don't think I'll be of any use for a wallpaper contest.
Well, look, with this type of attitude, you're never going to have a Master of the Universe title.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I do have Xubuntu 18.04 on a USB drive for some testing this weekend.
Very nice. And what are you going to, I know what you're going to try to test specifically, whether it works with dual monitors.
Yes, that's exactly one of the things I'm going to test.
Yes.
I am also going to try the minimal install.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very cool, man.
So there you go.
Well, listen, there's a lot of 18.04s here, but it would be pretty silly for me to be covering them when we have Simon here.
Take it away, Simon.
So there's also Kubuntu 18.04. Kubuntu 18.04 comes with the Plasma 5.12.2 release with KDE Frameworks 5.43, and it also comes with Qt 5.9.4, which is the latest LTS of the Qt release, or latest Qt LTS, and that's going to be the Qt release we're going to ship with Ubuntu 18.04, so that it provides a rock solid Qt LTS on top of, in Kubuntu's case, on top of, with an LTS Plasma, with frameworks, that sort of thing. And so Kubuntu 18.04, it's going to be the LTS Plasma with the LTS Qt with the LTS Ubuntu, and then you have all the Plasma applications, goodies, and the frameworks there. Ubuntu Budgie also got in a release
nice.
For this beta 1. They also did stuff like shipping snaps by default, and they ship with their Ubuntu Budgie welcome application snap by defaults, and they have just general improvements that are available in their release notes as well. Of course, there's other flavors like Ubuntu Chillin and Ubuntu Mate that also have some improvements there. Lubuntu actually didn't have a beta 1 release here because we had some issues with the installer that were happening, and somehow they were only reproducible on Lubuntu, so we did not release a beta 1. But in total, Xubuntu, Kubuntu, Ubuntu Mate, Ubuntu Chillin, and Ubuntu Budgie did have a beta 1 release. So we didn't have the previous 2 alphas. So usually in an Ubuntu cycle we have the 2 alphas, the 2 betas, and then the final release. We didn't have the first 2 alphas due to complications regarding the Spectre Meltdown.
Spectre Meltdown, yeah.
Yeah. Which meant all the builders were disabled, and then they had to patch stuff from there, which meant some downtime. So overall, we didn't have the first 2 alphas. So this is the first opportunity you have to see a release of these flavors. Final beta is going to come in a couple weeks then, and then leading up to there is going to be the final 18.04 release.
So I think I got the name of the show this week.
Oh, what's that?
The Distro Hopper's Dream. Because it's testing season, man.
Testing season.
Right.
The Distro Hopper's Dream with Simon Quigley.
Yep.
Yeah.
But speaking of the 18.04 things, if you're interested, the Kubuntu 18.04 has a lot of tweaks that I made. Okay, technically I didn't make any of them. I suggested them, and they made them.
You're just trying to get that title.
I partially helped. I'm going to become a master of the suggested universe someday.
Suggested universe. Nice.
So, talking about distro hopping, one of my favorites that I like to hop out has also got a release candidate out, and that's MX-17.
Yes.
And it's up there for testing. It's still available in both 32-bit and 64-bit. And the 64-bit version is patched for Meltdown and Spectre. But I think most of the distros out there have now been able to cover themselves for Meltdown and Spectre along the way. Mm-hmm. It's going to be using the 4.15.0-1 kernel. And there's lots of updated packages and new and updated MX apps, which is, for me, one of the things that makes it, a unique distro, where they have all of these tools to help those less technical people. You just literally go into this wonderful panel, and there's all sorts of stuff that you can play with and not really do a lot of damage. It just teaches you an easy way to get into this stuff. So it's out there. It's ready to be tested. So go and hop to your heart's content. So I know you're going to be testing Xubuntu, Rocco, but are you going to give MX a bit of love as well?
Oh, you know it. Now, this is all pending on time, now, obviously, but MX is definitely one to test out. And you said about the auto update option, that is going to enable unattended upgrades, which I think is a great feature. You have the Thunar custom actions. This is something that you had brought up, Zeb, where it wouldn't ask for a root password. So that's definitely going to be in the release. and all kinds of different things. So please go out and give them some love, because Dolphin Oracle and the MX team is absolutely awesome in the Linux community.
I love his face. I love everything about the man.
But dude, it's not just he's not just creating his own distro and just isolating himself. They work together all over the place throughout the community, and they deserve everybody to help out. You know, we talk about how we can help projects and maybe donate and everything. Well, you may not have the money to donate to a project, but you could maybe make an hour to go test a distro and let them know, even on their forums, to say, hey, this is what I found.
Well, here's what I'm really hoping. What's kept me from getting back into MX, which is one of my favorite distros like ever, in my top 5 distros that I would, you know, tell anybody is it's one of the best out there, is that I cannot get it to install on an NVMe M2 drive. It will not install. It'll get to the point where it gets to, you click install, and then it'll tell you it can't format the partitions. I'll go and manually format the partitions. It gives me the same error. It's been that way for several months, and I've not had the time to bring it up to Dolphin, because during the times that I'm like interested, I've usually screwed up my computer. So I'm trying to quickly get a distro to work so we can do the show. And so I haven't had a chance. So I'm hoping this one, when I try it, will work on the NVMe.
Guess what? You just did bring it up to Dolphin, because he listens.
You're right. Well, Dolphin, hook me up, man, please, because I want to get.
That's really strange, because I've got an NVMe drive and it's fine.
It works fine. Wow. Yeah.
Well, that goes back to what I said earlier, where different hardware reacts completely different. I mean, I don't have any idea what the difference could be between your guys' machines, but different hardware for one person works, and for another one it doesn't.
Yeah, yep. And I don't know if it's the way that your machine handles UEFI, if they can, or the way it handles secure boot, whether you've got it turned on or turned off and switched around. Each like motherboard will work things differently. So yeah, definitely, if you give it a whirl and you can't do it, give them your specs and they'll find out why. I'll put it on mine and give them my specs and say, well, look, my NVMe works fine. Maybe they'll be able to find something to tweak or to just tell you how to get it to install.
Yep, you should totally opt into that information.
Yes. All right, so another new release coming soon, and I would assume that it's going to be after the 18.04 releases, but Elementary working on Juno.
Dude, they're going ham on this, man.
It is just awesome to see. Look, they have, since the beta release, okay, they have fixed over 350 issues since the beta. I mean, they're working on it nonstop, and it's already a beautiful distribution, and yet they're still concentrating on all these little things to make it look that much better. So this comment about the search icons, because one of the features that they've added was on the panel where you have the menu that you drop down, they added a search icon to kind of let people know that this is what you would do with this item for newer users. And the comment is, this helps inform users what they can expect behind that item. Plus, it helps to balance the left side of the panel out a bit better with the right. Now, you got this distribution that you're working on, and you're doing things like that, and your focus is on making it better, but you're also focusing on making it look that much better. Little bit here, a little bit there. It's awesome to see, dude.
So Simon, when you look at something like Elementary and stuff, do you distro hop at all, or are you like, I'm sticking with the one I work on, I don't want to see that other stuff?
It depends. Like sometimes I'll put some stuff in a VM, but really I have a purpose when I put stuff in a VM, just to see what they're doing, how they implement this or how they implement that. I really don't distro hop much. If anything, I distro hop between the two distros I work on, which are Kubuntu and Lubuntu Next. Sometimes Lubuntu if I need just LXQt if I just need to install the work on something with. So I haven't tried it. It might be something for me to try, but my machine, I've had this installed for 6 to 9 months at this point.
That's how you get titles like that, Rocco. Not fooling around, jumping to different distros like we do every week.
Michael, have you tried Elementary?
I have. I as far as like, Elementary is one of those distros that I admire their work. I like what they're doing, and it's not for me.
Fair enough.
I'm the type of person who wants to manipulate, customize, tinker to like ridiculous levels.
Oh, XFCE then.
No, Plasma.
Plasma.
But so like you don't have to with Plasma. I'm just saying. But I like the control, having the customization, having all these options that are like I can do whatever I want. Elementary is not that type of distro. So, but I would give it to people who are just looking for like the introductory distro that they wanted to look good and they wanted to just work in a certain way. And Elementary does that great.
Yeah,
so.
And they're not trying to be that distro either. They're open about
exactly.
that. So
and they do a lot of like amazing design work. Like the fact that they put
the whole thing is awesome as far as design is concerned.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm saying like it's more in the sense of like the polish is like their whole idea is design is really their main focus is design, sure. But I'm saying like there's things that I have copied from them because they did it in their distro, and I was like, that's really cool. I'm gonna just take it. And like the thing they're doing now with the Juno, they announced the translucent like light and dark theme for the panel, the top panel. That is so cool. I took it. So
Steal Like an Artist. That's a good book, by the way.
Exactly. It's I totally like a lot of their design work, and so I decided to just put that on mine. And especially like when they were I think they were the first. They might not have been, but I'm pretty sure they were. Where when you have like this nice like translucent panel and you maximize the window, it becomes opaque, and so it's not like jarring. And I copied that too.
Well, let's talk about this because that's one of the features that they came out with. They're splitting the translucent and appearance so that you can have the translucent or you can have transparent. So it switches automatically depending on your wallpaper and what you have maximized. So you can maximize your window and it still goes opaque. So this is one of those things that look, the panel is something extremely important. It's something that you see constantly because most people do not full screen everything. So 99% of the time you're seeing that panel, and that's the main focus. And I think it's awesome that they put that much attention to it.
I never cared about this stuff until I started hanging out with you, Rocco. Now I look at panels and I'm like, wait a minute, that looks ugly. You've definitely influenced me there.
He notices pixels too now.
Yeah,
he does. I know. It rubs off. Zeb, what do you think of Elementary, man?
Yeah, Elementary is a really nice distro. You can open it up so that you can tweak it, but it's only to a certain degree. But if you just use it for the purpose for which it was built, it works. And it works well. And if you can put yourself almost in a Windows mindset of, I've just got an operating system that works and they're not going to allow me to play with it. Just get used to the way it works and you won't have any issues with it at all. You load it up, it installs, it fires up every time and everything works. And once you get used to their design features, you can actually start to go with the flow. And I think we've got somebody in our Telegram group who appears on Biddle that has converted every machine he's got to Elementary.
Yeah,
so I'm confused by your statement of getting a Windows mindset and then it just works, because there's those two things.
Well, unfortunately,
if I get in a Windows mindset, I'm thinking my screen locks up and I'm updating forcing.
And you're rebooting and you're waiting an hour to reboot.
Yeah,
I'm teasing, Zeb. I know what you
meant the mindset along the terms of you can't mess with it. Yeah, you're given an operating system, you've got to just use it. I wasn't talking about Windows works better than Linux, because it doesn't. It's good for most stuff, but Linux is definitely better, all told. What I wanted to ask Simon earlier, though, was when we were talking about they've fixed over 350 issues. My immediate question that popped into my head, well, why were those issues there in the first place? And this is where I don't understand the development ethos of moving from 1604, you're going to go up to 1804. You're obviously starting from a certain base and then you're changing so much. How much, when you take that Ubuntu base and you turn it into Lubuntu, do you find errors like that? And they're not necessarily errors, they're issues that you have to fix. Is Ubuntu as prolific with the number of errors that come downstream or upstream, whatever the terminology, to you, Simon, when you come to fix it?
So I think you're maybe misunderstanding a little bit of the relationship between Lubuntu and Ubuntu and something like elementary OS and Ubuntu. So with Lubuntu, our packages are part of Lubuntu, are part of the main archive, part of Ubuntu. So any issues that may happen for all flavors, at the same time, unless something's weird with our packaging. So the difference between that, where it's all completely baked in, and something like elementary OS, is that they're jumping 2 releases forward, and not only that, they have to adjust all their packages to work with that completely new, code base, completely new libraries that have been evolving between that 2-year period, especially something like GA. So, when you jump 2 years, that's something's going to break. But when you're constantly with the development cycle, at the edge of the development cycle, alongside the flavor, or alongside Ubuntu, then it makes it a little bit of an easier experience. So you don't have those 350 different issues where you're jumping from 2-year-old libraries to current libraries while someone current libraries.
So being based where you are on the structure, you're benefiting from all that development work that's gone along, and you just got to tweak it for your LXQt side of things. As you're saying, you're not having to grab 2 years worth of differences. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. And if anything, though, LXDE sits on top of an Ubuntu base, and the core packages that we have, they really don't. We use the libraries, but we really don't do many Lubuntu specific tweaks. Not that we can, because they're there for Ubuntu, and if something breaks, then it's in a library, and like I said, it's there for many different people. So.
Well, it's definitely a ton of work, and they're putting all kinds of other things into it, from better hardware management to improvements to the mouse and touchpad settings. So it will help with something for gamers. It has more touchpad settings to allow you to turn off the touchpad while you're typing. So they're putting all kinds of things into it. They have icons that are now, and nobody cares about this except for me. Well, obviously they do, but their notifications bell will now animate to show that you have a notification instead of just a normal icon. So all these little things go into it.
Yeah, and especially that touchpad thing is really nice, because I've had multiple people, I've switched them to different distros, and they can complaining that the touchpad won't disable while they're typing, and they just randomly click something, and that's incredibly annoying. So that is, while it doesn't seem like it's that important of a deal, but it is very important.
Rocco, am I smelling with Juno you're going to distro hop?
Dude, I can tell you that as soon as I can get my hands on the Juno release, I'm going to test out MX and Xubuntu first, but as soon as I can get my hands on a release of it, I will be testing it.
It's like we stepped into parallel universes. I'm sitting here still on GNOME, and you're jumping over to elementary. Is the world just gone mad?
Hey, so my prediction from last week was right. You are still using GNOME.
I am still on GNOME Ubuntu 18.04, running GNOME, enjoying it.
Awesome.
Well, with this next article that Michael's going to talk about,
is if you're not willing to jump yet, you might be with the next release of Solus, which is coming pretty soon.
Oh, man.
But then they released today an update for their on the road to Solus 4, and that is the massive update to their software center. And their software center is already one of my favorite software centers as far as appearance wise and functionality wise. They do really well, but it only had some kind of issues of discoverability. It had some issues with the information that you could see for the if you look for an application, you see the descriptions, you see screenshots, but sometimes absolutely didn't have screenshots. Sometimes it didn't even have icons and all kinds of stuff like that. So it had a ton of potential, but didn't go all the way. Well, now it basically is going all the way. So the latest update adds multiple features discoverability in the front page. And there's like, for example, like the featured, they're going to have like featured applications, like being able to see a curated list that the editor picks, sort of thing. And then you have like recently updated or things that are just added to like new in that week. But really thing that I like the most is they have redesigned like the infrastructure of it. So it's like super highly threaded. So it's going to be a lot faster. It's going to look better with the responsive UI and so much. So if you haven't checked it out, there's a video on the Solus website that like demonstrates all the new features, and like it actually has like nice theming changes. So it like easily switches to like dark theme modes and all this other stuff. Like I'm praising it too much, but it's really good. And the nerdy side of me has like, I appreciate even like the level that they're going, because they integrated the Git history of an application into this, like the changelog. So you can go in and look like what has all been added to a newer version without having to go to the source codes of all the applications. And while that's obviously not very important to most people, I like it.
Well, you guys know I'm a huge fan of software centers. I think they're all brilliant.
Yeah, yes, of course.
But this one actually looks very well done. Looking at some of the screenshots and the videos, it really looks beautiful. But at the end of the day, what I notice in most of the software centers with Linux is it's either beautiful and breaks all the time, or breaks all the time, or ugly and works. So it's kind of like this combination, you either one or the other. So if anybody's capable of putting together one that is both beautiful and functional, I'm sure it's Ike and the team over there. So I look forward to seeing it.
All right, Ryan, what have you been playing this week, man?
Oh my gosh. Normally I give you guys games that I love, right? Because I painstakingly, not really, go through these games and try to find one that, you know, you guys will really enjoy. But I thought it would be fun this week to talk about one that I absolutely hated and wish I could get off my machine.
Well, it wouldn't be hard for Zeb to talk about ones he hates, but go ahead.
Well, Zeb, in my quest to find a pixel game that you would love, something where you're stuck in traffic, like I said last week, or something like that, I thought about Beat Cop, because I thought, well, that's boring. Well, it really truly is. It really is just as boring as it sounds. So, you know, this game is just one that I would put on your completely avoid list. The general story and gameplay is absolutely boring. The idea is you're a detective, kind of like an 80s throwback, which is kind of a cool theme. That part's okay. And you've been framed for a murder, but somehow you're still allowed to be a beat cop. So you're now a detective to a beat cop. And it's all very, very pixelated and poor graphics. And the gameplay is just as poor. So trying to lock people up or write people tickets for parking. Zeb, actually, the more I think of it, you might love this game. You're right.
I was going to say you would love this game. I mean,
yeah, you sit there and you write tickets, and, you know, for tires, you go around and inspect people's tires to see if they, you know, have holes in them or anything, and write them tickets for that. The humor in the game, though, is just, honestly, it's extremely childish and weak, and ultimately the game just doesn't really resonate with me.
Well, that's a downer.
Yeah. So, but Zeb, there's your game, man. See you Saturday.
You live streaming this, Zeb?
I think that'll be a no.
Okay. All right. All right. What do we got next?
This I am pumped about. Is anybody else pumped about this? Fine, I'll take it. No. So look, I love games like Hearthstone, right? It's a guilty pleasure of mine to play these games. They are so addictive. And the idea is Hearthstone, which is made by Blizzard. You got Magic the Gathering. There are a bunch of other games like this out there. But the idea is like a deck collection, but it's virtual decks, you know, card decks that you're building in different characters and attack modes and different things like that. So there's a lot of strategy behind it. And these games are extraordinarily popular. Hearthstone specifically is ridiculously popular. And of course, everybody usually knows Magic, but they've got their digital version of it out there. Well, Valve is finally releasing a new game, guys. Anybody? Hello. Are you guys still alive?
Do you shoot people?
Basically, kind of. So in Hearthstone, while it's just a card game and you're playing against other people online, and you're basically seeing, you know, who can utilize the deck that they have. the most efficiently. It will usually have animations like missiles firing at their cards and monsters and things like that. So it's a lot more exciting than it sounds to talk about. And if you've not played one of those games,
well, I was going to say, because if you're playing like this Dungeons and Dragon type game with cards, is this like Snap meets Dungeons and Dragons?
No.
Sorry, I just don't get how people. It's like I've got a nephew who gets excited about going down our local caves, dressing up as a paladin, and then playing real life Dungeons and Dragons. And
LARPing, dude, it's awesome. Yeah. You ever LARPed? Come on, man.
No, I've been down there and frozen myself.
Magic missile
for 2 hours watching these. And this seems like holding up your deck to your hand, looking at what you got. I'm going to play that card. Oh no, he's trumped me with a wizard with mushrooms. Really?
I mean, what's the difference then? You're running around in a what games do you? Oh, well, never mind. You play truck games.
I run around and blow everything up with my trucks. Yep. Great fun.
I mean, people who like the card games, I mean, that's a really popular thing and has been for decades. Like Pokemon was like one of the first card games I ever played as a kid, and it was incredibly popular in like the mid '90s or so.
Yeah, there's a massive amount of strategy to these games, and honestly, I've never been fantastic at them, but I've always enjoyed the concept. I've always enjoyed playing casual games of Hearthstone with people. But the folks, if you watch them on Twitch, are really good at it. Like they can do amazing things and come out of, because there's a lot of strategy of when to play cards, just like in normal, poker or anything else. When you play cards, when you don't, when you toss, cards away, all of that type of stuff. So listen,
that just reminds me of how bad I am at that game.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, when to throw certain cards. That's a thing. What?
You just throw them as soon as you get them.
Like that looks cool.
Yeah, but look, Valve's releasing a new game, and here's the exciting part to me. Anything Valve releases is going to be ultra popular. It's a AAA game.
Why is Valve not releasing... Why are they releasing this game and not Half-Life 3?
Maybe when you download this game, it really is Half-Life 3. You ever thought about that?
Maybe.
It's a hidden gem.
It's magic.
You got to draw one of the cards, and it's Half-Life 3.
Yeah.
It's coming to Linux, Rocco. A AAA title from one of the biggest developers, publishers out there, Valve, and it's a super popular game. How could you not be excited?
I think our conversation was more exciting than the actual game.
Oh my God.
In that case, Rocco, you should totally check out the Portal Bridge Constructor game that Valve made.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'll get right on that. Simon, are you a gamer?
I'm gonna be honest with you here. I'm not really a gamer.
He doesn't have time to game.
He doesn't have time to
titles
game.
like that.
He's master of the universe.
Time to play around, right?
Yeah. You can't expect him to be doing everything.
All right. What other unexciting game do we have, Ryan?
You know what? This one is quite beautiful. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a great game, but based on the screenshots and the videos, this looks really fun. And they've got a lot of backing because this is launching for PS4, PC, Mac, Xbox, and soon it's coming to Linux. So they're basically going across the spectrum on everything, and Linux is in there, so that makes me happy. But Earthlock is an absolutely beautiful-looking RPG adventure game that looks like, to me, a combination of like a Final Fantasy and Zelda melded together. Like it feels Nintendo-y, if you know what I mean, when you're watching it. That fun, beautiful colored, great soundtrack style of game, and we're gonna get it here in Linux. Does this pique your interest? Anybody here? Am I the only gamer on this whole show?
I think you must be, because I'm looking at the video thinking my 4-year-old grandson would like this.
You know what? Don't you have a virtual truck to go drive, Zeb?
to be fair to Ryan here, I might play this game because it does have a Zelda mixed with it feels like a Final Fantasy VII, and that was I didn't really like Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy VII was fantastic, and then. Like the vibe that I got from watching the trailer for this game, it looks pretty much like that. And that seems interesting to me. Like that one actually, it has potential. I'll give you that.
Well,
there you go.
Look, I may not be into these games, but there are developers behind these games. And I am grateful that these developers take the time to make their games for Linux, regardless of if I like it or not, or would ever play it. Because there's many people that would. So all of that is
that's a really brilliant point to bring up, because we received a comment a couple of weeks back where someone said, hey, not all of us are gamers. Yep. And one of the things I want to point out about that is when I started with Linux, the first thing I would hear from everybody was, yeah, good luck gaming on it. Well, I game brilliantly in Linux, and I've shown brilliantly how you can run on the latest hardware in Linux. Linux games amazing, and people don't realize that. And one of the biggest issues, though, that is true is we don't have the game titles. We haven't had the game titles, but we talked about that changing, and it has. So even if you're not into gaming, the fact we're getting AAA titles from major publishers means that Linux adoption is going to be that much faster for other people who are looking alternatives to Windows.
Yep. So this brings me to a final point about the games and Linux. There is a game coming out soon, and all we have is a trailer for it. So the game is called Torn, and it is produced by Asper Media, who does a lot of Linux games, Linux porting, and they do great work. But this specific game looks awesome, and yet it is not going to have Linux support. So Liam from Gaming on Linux tried to get an answer out of Asper Media whether it was going to have Linux support or not, and they said that it was going to be for Windows only. So we need a call to action. Lame. That's what I said, lame. We need a call to action to contact Asper Media. And you guys, I will post a link for the video. You got to go check it out. It looks like an amazing game. We all need to contact Asper Media and tell them we want a Linux port of this game.
We can send them pictures with Zeb and a Louisville Slugger and say, if you don't.
or the baton.
So I want to give a huge shout out to Simon. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was so awesome having you on and getting your feedback and all the future things that are coming out there for Lubuntu. Thank you, Simon.
Thanks for having me.
And we want to give a huge shout out to our patrons who continue to do amazing things, helping support this show, keeping it running. And we appreciate all of you who donate and listen to the show and continue to support us, but special thanks to them.
Yep. You know, you see an episode come out and people will then start chatting about it in a Telegram group. It's just amazing to see. So all of it is much appreciated. All right, I think that about wraps it up for this week. So we will be back next week with another exciting interview, and that's all I'm going to say. So nice. Make sure you check out next week. But everybody have a great week. And remember, the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Destination Linux Podcast.
See, I don't like this. You have the title based on a cartoon you've never even watched. How is that fair? I watched the cartoon. I should have the title.
Well, I think I'm just
become a developer and then work on the universe.
I don't want to work on stuff. I just want the title.
With different modifications on it.
Oh, wow.
That would have been good, because I'd have then said, okay, which one of you guys set him up? Yeah, who? Yeah, that would have been funny.
What are you reaching for back there, Zeb?
No, nothing.
Yeah, what's in your hands, Zeb? Simon, duck, will you? Quick.
That was awesome.
I remember being in a car on the way down to a seaside resort when England won the cup in 1966.
What kind of cup did you guys win?
The World Cup.
Was it a
This is when cup? We won a red Solo Cup.
Yeah, no, this is in.
This is the Masters of the Universe Cup here.
You guys call it soccer.
I just started coding for Ubuntu.
He started coding and he started becoming Master of the Universe.
He's like, I don't have time for this cartoon stuff. I'm going to write my own distro. Making us feel real great, Simon.
Yeah, while
We're watching He-Man and he's making distros.
Yeah, I'm still watching He-Man and he's making distros.
That's weird.
I don't know if you guys have these in America, but we have something called Jaffa cakes. Yeah?
No.
But is
Yeah,
it
we
is it
definitely
a
don't
biscuit?
Looks
or is
like
it
a
a cake?
It's a cookie.
It's soft.
It's a cookie. It's a cookie.
It's a Fig
The
Newton.
cookie.
Inside is like a bit of jelly, orange jelly.
That's a cookie.
Now people call these biscuits, other people call them cakes, but
They're neither. They're cookies.
You guys just make stuff up over there, like your, Queen Squid money or whatever.
The plastic. There you go.
You guys just keep making up words, and they're like, "Oh, you're not using proper English here. This is a biscuit." You mean the cookie with melted chocolate chips on? Yeah, a biscuit. It's a biscuit. Yeah, they go. If you go down to the gas station, you could get a biscuit the size of a cat head, and I'm trying to figure out, like, is that good or bad, or you guys picking on me?
Just like I think in Green Bay, Wisconsin, I think we are like one of the only spots in the whole country that calls water fountains bubblers. They're bubblers, guys.
What?
This bubbly is good from the bubbler.
What do you want from Cheeseheads?
Man, Rocco.
Sorry.
9 Inch Nails.
Oh, I don't know. I don't.
One of the greatest bands ever existed.
I mean, they were okay.
was there a support band, the 4-inch bolts or something?
Zeb, what's your favorite music? We've never heard.
My favorite music.
I think. Let me guess. Polka.
You go ahead and guess what's my favorite genre.
Polka.
Jazz.
I'm gonna say classic rock,
Early
Zeb.
20s jazz.
I'm gonna say death metal.
Classic rock.
Yodeling.
I can see that though. I can see that.
What is your favorite genre?
I got it. Hungarian throat music.
No, I'm sorry. It's 90s R&B.
Really?
No kidding.
Really?
Yeah. Simon,
That is
do you have time to
definitely
listen
something I
to
never
music, or do you not
You
partake in that
just
either?
code all day long.
No, I listen.
My keyboard is my music. Click, 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 click.
I can't code or do anything without listening to music. Really, that's how I get into a deep state of concentration.
Wait, you said
But then Ike is like that.
constant what? Constant. Huh?
What?
What?
Squirrel.